I've done quite a lot of LARP, which stands for live action role play, that is dressing up and pretending to be someone else. And this one was a little bit different. I've done a few which lasted 2, 3, even 4 days. This was 2 full days and a little bit more. So this was one of the longer LARPs, if you like. But this was unusual in a lot of ways. One, the period. It's not often that something is set during World War I. But also, this one had no group goal. Most LARPs are written such that all the people who come together form a sort of team that has some group goal. So, for example, there might be some villain who needs to be defeated, or some invention that needs to be put together, or whatever it is. Whereas this one was just give lots of people a situation and a load of good characters and let them go and see what happens. There were some little plot points, but they were just really a framework for the rest of the people to be their characters. Okay. My character was written for me, but I did make a major tweak to him. He was Harold Lockwood, and he was a Hollywood movie star. And on the page, I thought he was a well-rounded and interesting character, but he was American, and I thought it might be more interesting if he was actually born in Britain, which is the way I played it, and that he was more of a fake and more aware that he was a fake. So his backstory was that he went to Brooklyn and then got involved in repertory theatre in New York, and then went over to LA, and in Hollywood land became a movie star, and had then become rich and famous. But he was from a large family that was back in Britain, and he'd lost contact with them. And so I had motives, for instance, for talking to people, trying to work out if I wanted to track down some family who were lost, for instance, how would I do this? And a lot of people were starting to twig that possibly I was asking for myself. And I don't know that anyone actually ever put it all together and decided, oh, I think that guy's actually secretly English. But it was great for me because of all the internal struggles that I was having. So when I met someone else who was actually British and he was pretending to be French, I was so conflicted, and it was really interesting because I met him and he was a fraud, and I knew that secretly I was sort of a fraud, even though I'm now an American citizen. But he was an unapologetic, smiling fraud who was sponging off others, and I started to really hate him, and then that started making me loathe myself as well. And the complexity of that situation, which was all happening inside my head, was wonderful, and it was quite an experience. So I was, for a while, Harry Lockwood.
Okay. What was your favorite interaction with other players during that LARP?
With LARPs like this, you tend to have a few main moments that really stick with you, the big emotional ones or the funny ones. I was a member of a theatrical troupe, the Gaiety Theatre Players, and I had established relationships with the other players in that group. And I don't know if I can pick out one. There was one moment when I was dancing with one of them, and I was very angry at that point, and I was trying to tell her she was a bastard, and she was really upset by this. It really disturbed her, and I was actually saying, all these people in the room are bastards. If anyone tells you that you're not as good as they are, then you let me know. At that point, I was dancing with her, and I had so much rage that she was actually quite confused, which was dramatically rather appropriate. Another time, an old flame of mine and I were on a balcony, and my character broke down. There were proper tears. I was really feeling it about how I had lost my friend. And that's right, she said in a quiet moment, "Harry, you're actually English, aren't you?" Now, we had agreed before the LARP first time in that she was perhaps 80–90% sure. She played it really well, and she just threw that in at just that moment. And even then, I still didn't admit that I was actually English. All I said was, I don't know where they are, I don't know where they are, and I started talking about my family. So that was another great moment. Another time, I was sitting opposite a beautiful and extremely sweet Swedish lady who was playing a Russian aristocrat, and she said something horrible about one of the other characters, talking about how selfish he was, and I thought, I was so annoyed with her. I thought, you utter cow. And the thing is that there she was, in reality, a very sweet, beautiful woman opposite me, and she was my entertainment for the meal. We were talking away. It was actually quite difficult to talk to many people far away from you because it got very loud and echoey in that room. And so she was my main chance to have a pleasant conversation. But she annoyed me so much by what she said about this man. I thought, there's just been a revolution in Russia, and do you not think your world is about to come crashing down? And you're telling me that he's selfish? Never mind the situation. The point is, I just thought, I was so angry with her that, of course, I was Harry Lockwood. I was politeness incarnate, but I pretty much stopped talking to her for that at that moment, and I was then actually a bit bored because I had no one to talk to for quite some while. But damn it, I really didn't want to talk to her because I was so annoyed. And if you get so wrapped up in your character that you can feel that, that's an immersive moment, and that's what LARPs are usually trying, at least the good LARPs are trying to be immersive. You forget who you actually are, you forget the world you're in. I actually remember thinking the thought, oh, I'm in Poland, because I actually a few times forgot that I was in Poland. So there you go, it's immersive. Okay. Sorry, that was a rather long answer, wasn't it?
If you can try to slow down a bit.
Oh.
I think it's fine.
Okay, so maybe
Right.
it's just
Fine. I understand.
My voice is at least clear.
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Hmm.
Slurp it has like a pretty sad setting. What kind of emotions did it trigger into you? Did you manage to get into the mood of
Oh, yes.
war and
Oh yes, okay.
something about this?
Right. One thing that's a little bit odd is that this LARP is set in a very beautiful world. There are gorgeous women, and they look fantastic with their hats and their furs, and I'm thinking, oh, why don't women dress like this? They look so beautiful in their hats and furs. And there were other beautiful moments. There was a firework display, and when I first learned that there was a firework display, I just thought, oh, wow, there's a firework display as well, that's great. But when the firework display actually happened, and I was standing with all those beautifully dressed people on a beautiful terrace looking at these beautiful fireworks, I was feeling so low. That was the least jubilant firework display I've ever seen. And I think I'm going to have that association with fireworks for a while now. They've been spoiled for me. But there were people who had suffered shell shock in the war, who just couldn't stand it, and they fled indoors. We'd just been told that half the servants and several of the men upstairs had been called up. And there I was thinking, am I going to be called up? No, I think I'm all right. I'm an American citizen, but is America going to come into the war? There was just this, to use the American expression, there was such a huge downer at that moment. And it's an unusual way to end a LARP. Most people perhaps would try to end on a high note, but this particular LARP ended on quite a downer, but it took everyone with it. The mood took everyone with it, and everyone was very, very somber. And it's impressive that for a whole group to be carried along by the mood of the moment like that. Was that actually an answer to the question? What was the question again?
What kind of emotions did it trigger into you?
Oh, okay. Oh, that was an example of one then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so my next one would
Oh, there were some funny moments too. I should.
okay, so but this LARP is still historical-ish, not historical.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think a person who doesn't know much about history can attend this event?
Right.
Would it,
Okay.
okay.
This particular LARP is inspired by Downton Abbey, although it's not the Downton Abbey LARP. It has servants and butlers and so forth, but they're not recreations of the characters from the television program. I think anyone who's seen that would probably have a good enough feel to immerse themselves in this world. If you know even a moderate amount about World War I and British society and so forth, I think you'll be fine. And there was a convention. We were briefed, trained at the start of the LARP. And one of the things we were told was that if someone makes a historical slip, if they mention an item that hasn't been invented yet, if they mention a film that's not been released yet, or an item of clothing that they're wearing is wrong or whatever, just let it go. Because this is not meant to be a perfectly historical reenactment. It's just meant to be an immersive LARP experience. There are limitations to this. My own character, for instance, was a fake. And I was sort of wanting to be found out as a fake, otherwise it's not that terribly interesting. And so I was putting more and more slips in. My accent got worse and worse and worse. And the way I changed my accent, depending on whom I was talking to, got more and more obvious and exaggerated. And I was thinking, surely someone's going to pick up on this. I don't think anyone did pick up on this. I think they thought, oh, well, that was just Lloyd. That was just the player making a bit of a slip. Sometime I was talking oh dear, I've lost it for a moment there. I had an American accent, and so the word like lock would be lock, and so forth. And so I was talking in that American accent, and then suddenly I became all sort of Cary Grant, and I was the big fake movie star. And I thought that those two voices were so distinct that surely someone's going to pick up on the fact that this guy has at least 2 or 3 different accents. And then sometimes I sounded a little bit New York or Brooklyn, and then there was occasionally I would slip into English even, and then back out. But I couldn't get people to pick up on it because there is this understanding, which I completely understand, that you've got to let little slips go. People are very, very accommodating. Almost no one here had absolutely perfectly period kit. I saw people with zip fasteners and so forth. It didn't really matter. As long as you've made the effort and it's clear what you represent, you're fine.
How did you prepare for this experience?
I didn't do a huge amount of preparation for this experience. I did already own quite a lot of period kit. Not actually 1917, it's mainly 1920s and 30s because I'm a swing dancer, but it was close enough. So to prepare, I read my character brief, I took notes from my character brief and reread them a few times, trying to get into my head themes that I might play up. So for instance, the theme of I'm looking for my lost family. What can I do with that? So reminding myself of what my character's like, getting the clothes together, and that was pretty much it. I've done LARP before, so the idea of playing a character and keeping that character going was easy enough. I'm very glad to say that the other LARPers here made it easy. Almost no one ever dropped out of character, and that makes it so easy to stay in character oneself.
I have any question?
I think we're great.
Okay. Is there anything you would like to add? Is there anything you saying out loud?
Just a second, I think.
I haven't done a...
So, talk a little bit about servants.
well, do you want me to do everything? The food, the location, and the servants all rolled into one, or?
No, maybe just
Separate
first
points.
servants and then we do the
Okay. Now, before I got into character, I was given the nobles briefing. We were trained a little bit in how to behave and how to treat each other. Meanwhile, the servants were being given their own briefing, and I really appreciated that. Even though I never saw the briefing itself, I could see that there must have been a briefing because they all had a certain servant's manner about them, which added hugely to the atmosphere. And in particular, it was the walk. They had this upright, not swinging their arms around walk that even from a great distance, you just saw someone crossing the end of a corridor off in the distance, that's a servant. The body language difference that made was huge. So if they were standing on staircase and just standing to one side, getting out of your way so I could breeze past, made such a difference. And immediately, it reminded me of Downton Abbey and so forth. And it was quite an experience walking out of a door and seeing a line of servants either side, and they're all not looking at me and not expecting to be looked at. That was very impressive.
And provocation.
All right, okay. Don't know how much, this is the hunting room I'm in here. This is an enormous, I don't know, conference table or something, and this is one of dozens of fantastic rooms which have amazing detail. Above all the doors, there's amazing carvings, and there are pillars and marble, and there are 99 turrets, I'm told. And there's the front terrace, and I had a room with a balcony. I had a great balcony. I think I had one of the best balconies in the castle. It's got a ballroom, it's got a huge dining hall with fantastic ceiling. We had a theatre for the theatre scene. We had pretty much anything you could possibly want in a LARP like this was in this, all within very easy walking distance. You never had to leave this world, go through a bit of modern world, and then back into another location. You were immersed in this one fabulous location for the whole time. It would be pretty difficult to improve on this for a Downton Abbey style LARP.
Thank you very much.
And the food was good.